The 7 levels of world leaders. Explained. Level 1. The Figureheads. Friedrich Merz of Germany. He appears at every G7 summit, signs every major treaty, and travels in a multi-million-dollar motorcade. But none of that means he controls his nation's trajectory. Level 1 leaders are managers of a system they didn't build. Merz, despite his 2025 electoral victory, is constrained by a fragile coalition in the Bundestag, trapped by a constitutional debt break, and vulnerable to the rising domestic pressures of the AfD and BSW. In 2026, a Level 1 leader has the title, but the power belongs to the office. They are the public face of a collective decision-making process, where their personal will is almost entirely irrelevant. They manage a hollowed-out military and an industrial base struggling with energy costs. Like Keir Starmer in the UK or Emmanuel Macron in France, they represent the democratic theater, high visibility, zero kinetic autonomy to act without a committee. They are the shock absorbers for the real power players. Designed to take the blame for systemic failures they lack the authority to fix. Level 2. The Transactionals. Level 2 is where power becomes a business. These are the leaders of middle-market nations who don't lead nations so much as they manage balance sheets. Their sovereignty is effectively rented. A Level 2 leader like Mohammed Yunus of Bangladesh or Javier Milei of Argentina serves their creditors before they serve their people. Yunus, leading an interim government under the shadow of the February 2026 elections, must navigate a landscape of institutional paralysis and anti-India protests, while maintaining the favor of global financial institutions. Milei, on the other hand, has bet his entire legacy on a high-stakes chainsaw economic model, where his ability to stay in power depends entirely on inflation metrics and IMF goodwill. One bad trade deal or one missed interest payment, and their rule evaporates. They are survivors, not strategists. They stay in power by playing the big powers against each other, selling their geography to the US or their mineral rights to Beijing just to stay afloat for another fiscal quarter. At Level 2, the national interest is whatever keeps the lights on for the next 30 days. Level 3. The Regional Anchors. Level 3 is the first tier of true kinetic influence. These leaders have built armor and domestic self-reliance. Nations like Poland under Karol Nawrocki or Turkey under Recep Tayyip Erdogan have adopted the new playbook of 2026. A Level 3 leader doesn't just manage a country, they anchor a region. Nawrocki, framing 2026 as the year of security and development, is translating Poland's massive military spending into a tool of European leadership that often defies Brussels. Erdogan, controlling the Bosporus, plays NATO against Russia because he owns the gateway. They have the military mass to say no to the superpowers. They often control vital choke points or serve as the frontline guardians against revisionist powers. At Level 3, you are no longer a passenger in history. You are a roadblock. These leaders are the gatekeepers. If you want to move goods, troops, or influence through their backyard, you must pay the price they demand. Level 4. The Nuclear Cartel. Level 4 is reserved for the historic powers the UK and France. These are the armed diplomats. Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom and Emmanuel Macron of France possess the ultimate deterrent: nuclear weapons and a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. On paper, they should be higher, but in 2026, they are shackled by the depth problem. While they have elite technology like the Astute-class submarines or the Rafale fighter jets, their domestic industrial bases have withered to the point where they cannot sustain a long-term war of attrition. They can start a conflict, but they cannot finish one without Level 7 support. They are the prestige powers, using global influence and historic legacy to mask domestic decay and hollowed-out logistics chains. They operate on a subscription model of power, remaining relevant only as long as the alliance structures they helped build remain intact. Without NATO, a Level 4 leader is a king with a very small, very expensive castle. Level 5. The energy sovereigns. This is the level of absolute domestic will. Think of the Gulf kings, or the leaders of massive resource states. At level 5, the leader is the state. There is no distinction between the national treasury and the leader's bank account. Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia or Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed of the UAE don't need to negotiate with a parliament or worry about an election cycle. Because they control the world's energy or mineral taps, they can buy loyalty at home and influence abroad through checkbook diplomacy. They use sovereign wealth funds to buy up Western technology, sports teams, and politicians. They are the only tier that can remain truly neutral in a US-China conflict because both sides are addicted to their resources. They have traded democratic legitimacy for total fiscal autonomy. They don't follow the rules of the international order. They fund the people who make them. Level 6. The Revisionist Giants. Level 6 is occupied by the titans who are actively trying to rewrite the global map. Vladimir Putin of Russia and Xi Jinping of China. These leaders have total internal control and the military mass to challenge the global status quo. In early 2026, we see this in the Donroe Doctrine response from Moscow and the aggressive tech independence speeches from Beijing. A level 6 leader operates on a multi-decade timeline. They aren't worried about the next election. They are worried about their place in the history books. They can mobilize millions, crash global supply chains, and absorb massive economic pain to achieve a territorial or ideological goal. However, they are still revisionists. They are reacting to a system they didn't create and are currently trying to dismantle. Their power is vast, but it is focused on conflict and disruption. They are the primary challengers to the level 7 throne, using hybrid warfare and economic leverage to chip away at the edges of the absolute hegemon. Level 7. The Absolute Sovereigns. At the top of the audit, we find the Absolute Sovereigns. In 2026, this tier is defined by the Putinization of US foreign policy, a leader who operates entirely outside the law because they are the law. This level is currently occupied by Donald Trump of the United States under the 2026 Donroe Doctrine. A level 7 leader has global reach with impunity. Under this doctrine, the US has signaled that it will treat the entire Western Hemisphere and vital global trade routes as a private security zone, where international law is secondary to national interest. A level 7 leader can snatch a foreign leader like Maduro from a sovereign nation, seize the Panama Canal, or weaponize the entire global financial system with a single executive order. While level 6 leaders want to change the rules, level 7 leaders realize the rules don't apply to them. They control the reserve currency, the satellite arrays, and the undersea cables. They are the only leaders who can survive a total global blockade because they own the blockade. A level 7 leader doesn't have allies. They have subordinates and rivals. They are the linchpin of the entire human hierarchy. The conclusion of the audit. The audit is clear. In 2026, the gap between a level 1 manager and a level 7 sovereign is the widest it has been in a century. Most of what you see on the news, the summits, the handshakes, the protests, is a level 1 puppet show designed to distract you from the level 7 reality. Power is not granted. It is taken, held, and weaponized. The higher you go on this list, the less the rules matter, and the more will becomes the only currency that counts. This is the hierarchy. This is the world as it is, not as it is described in textbooks. Question for the archive. Is it safer to be a citizen of a level 1 democracy that can't protect you, or a subject of a level 7 power that owns you? Next briefing. The Russian military audit. Is the bear truly broken, or is it evolving? This is the echelon. The briefing concluded.